she was the one that was really hands-on running the network. But he was also a spy for Israel and...
So Maxwell's dad was an Israeli spy.
Jamie Dimon with J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan just gave Epstein's victims $290 million.
Let's talk about Maxwell. How did she play into everything? What was her role?
Well, she was the one that was really hands-on running the network, the logistics person. I interviewed an Israeli spy, Ari Ben Menashe, on my podcast. And, he's a spy. It's difficult to know if he's telling the truth or not. But, okay, so her father, Robert Maxwell, had a publishing empire. But he was also a spy for Israel and Russia and the UK and probably the US. And he had this huge publishing empire. And what he did was he went into the retirement funds of his employees and stole them all.
So Maxwell's dad was an Israeli spy.
Yes.
Who was running logistics for Jeffrey Epstein.
No. So he was a spy for sure, and then he had a huge publishing empire.
But his daughter
and
was running logistics for Jeffrey
Epstein. Yes,
who has been named by government officials that he's untouchable because he's in intelligence.
Yes.
So there's a line.
There's
right
a nexus there. Yeah, and Maxwell had a yacht called Lady Ghislaine, which was named after his daughter, Ghislaine, who was his favorite child. And he jumped off one day, and he had a very mysterious death, much like Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the cover story on it is that, because it did come out that he'd ripped off all these, the retirement funds of all these employees. Millions of dollars. He destroyed all these people. A guy obviously didn't have a conscience. And Ghislaine Maxwell supposedly then came to New York to get away from it. And then that's where she met Jeffrey Epstein. Now, according to this Israeli spy that I interviewed, Robert Maxwell put Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein together. And they were together even before he died, before his mysterious death. Some people think it's suicide. Some people think it's homicide. It's a very strange death. So somehow Maxwell and Epstein got together. And the story is that Epstein had the money and Maxwell had the connections. And I think that there's some truth there.
And this guy was a spy for the Israelis, the UK, and possibly the US, and I believe you named another one.
And possibly Russia, yeah.
And do all these countries have people involved in this trafficking ring?
With Jeffrey Epstein, it's really difficult to know. Jeffrey Epstein was active in Europe, for sure. He was actually buying. We're not talking renting. He was buying young girls in Eastern Europe. Buying them like slaves.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, how evil that is.
We've covered this in other episodes about how trafficking works. But I believe you mentioned something about were there members in the UK government involved or within the royal family?
Okay, so definitely Prince Andrew was part of. He was pandering. Epstein was pandering girls to Prince Andrew, and who is a thoroughly repulsive human being. I did some research into him, and anybody that ever worked for the royal family loathes Prince Andrew.
What was he into? What was his deal?
He liked underage girls. That was his thing. But he's just a nasty fowl. human being. I think a lot of the people in the royal family are probably nasty, foul human beings. I think Andrew is probably a little special that way. He's probably a little nastier and more foul than his siblings, because just from, and this is very strange. So here's a guy that molests underage girls, but he has all these teddy bears, and the butler, or whoever takes care of the house manager where he lives, they're supposed to have the teddy bears on his bed in a certain way. And if the teddy bears aren't on his bed the way that he likes them, then he has a conniption. So he likes to molest little girls, and then he likes teddy bears on a certain way on his bed. So that's kind of, and according to Andrew, he doesn't sweat either, according to the BBC interview. So, which really, I mean, there was that BBC interview where he attempted to acquit himself, and he came across as such an idiot. I mean, you could tell that it's like Jamie Dimon with J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan just gave Epstein's victims $290 million.
Yeah.
And there was a New York Times article where Jamie Dimon was talking, and you could tell that the guy was lying. I mean, it didn't take rocket science to figure out. And then, he's saying, of course, we had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, there's this $290 million settlement. So obviously, these banks were integral to what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. And they knew, according to these lawsuits, these banks, J.P. Morgan, Deutsche Bank, they knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was up to.
How do you think they were involved?
Well, I think that some of the executives in those banks, like Jess Staley, I mean, were involved in Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile network. And
why are they going? I guess what
and Diamond too.
I'm kind of. I mean, it's so if they sued J.P. Morgan and not the individuals, how was J.P. Morgan as a company involved in the Jeffrey Epstein, sex trafficking ring, rather than just the key players that were? I mean, do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
why wouldn't they go after the key individuals? And why did they go after the company, J.P. Morgan?
Well, the argument that they made was that J.P. Morgan was cognizant of of Jeffrey Epstein trafficking children and gave him the money to facilitate it. They gave him money to do other things, but with the money that J.P. Morgan gave Jeffrey Epstein, that facilitated his child trafficking.
I mean, do you think this was a protection? Were they protecting certain people's identity by putting it into the company?
Absolutely, Jess Staley and Diamond. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it's pretty obvious that when you look into them, they were involved with Jeffrey Epstein.
How were they involved?
I think that they were probably involved in molesting young girls. I mean, that's my surmise on that. And according to internal documents that were that the lawyers for the Epstein victims were able to acquire, J.P. Morgan definitely knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. Now, how would J.P. Morgan know that unless some of those executives were taking part in it? I mean, it doesn't make any sense that J.P. Morgan would not know about it. So if those individuals, like I've just named, weren't involved with Jeffrey Epstein.
Were those names involved in the lawsuit? Were they mentioned in the lawsuit?
They were mentioned, yes.
Okay.
But it wasn't explicit. But they were mentioned, yeah. And then Deutsche Bank is also the same type of thing. They were aware of Jeffrey Epstein, and they're going to give up millions of dollars too. I think they're only going to give up $75 million.
That's it?
Yeah.
How many victims is this going to be dispersed to?
We don't. I don't really know those numbers yet. But There's multiple tragedies here, but one of the major tragedies is $290 million isn't even going to dent JP Morgan.
I'm well aware. I totally agree with you. That's nothing.
I mean, it's like you or me getting like a parking ticket. So that's a tragedy.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.